Hi everybody and welcome back to the Future of Work APAC 2021. My name's Rhiannon Chandler-Day and I'm your host and conference director for today's event. So before we kick off, just a few reminders to get underway. Now there is a Q&A facility there on your screen. Feel free to submit any questions throughout today's session. We'll get round to posing those questions at the end of the session today. You'll also see a resource centre. Feel free to download any of those materials for future use. They're there for you, so please take advantage of that. And also, this session is going to be on demand. You can watch this session for up to a month after the event today. You'll receive an email with all of the links to the sessions. And also just a quick reminder that to attend all of the sessions, there's a pink hand on your screen, a call to action that will take you through to the next session. Equally, you will receive an email with a URL. Select already registered and I will meet you there. But without further ado, let's move on to our second session of the day. Now we're going to be focusing on New World, New Leaders, why you need to upskill your leadership today. So I'm delighted to be introducing you to Shweta Kumar, Chief Learning Architect at Disprz, and Chandi Conrad, Associate Principal at Korn Ferry. Welcome both of you today.
Thank you, Rhi. Such a pleasure to be here. And good morning to all our listeners today.
So I think let's kick off. Today, one of the best things that a workplace can do to keep abreast with the disruptions in this new normal is to develop leadership talent within the organisation. And a leader's role is really to cement and put the leader at the forefront, or the employees at the forefront, and translate the organization's vision into action from a strategic angle. But do we think that organizations are equipping the leaders enough to do that? So what I'd like to do today is talk to both of you, Shweta and Chandi, about how and why it's important to upskill from a top-down approach and what's being implemented and how. So first of all, I would like to kick off by bringing you in, Chandi, if that's okay, and asking you what are some of the key skill set traits that a leader must have to keep up with today in this digitally savvy world, and for an organization to remain digitally sustainable.
Okay, thank you, Shweta. Thank you, Rhi and Shweta. So basically, Korn Ferry conduct a research on about digital sustainability, where digital sustainability as a definition is an organization's ability to continuously adapt and thrive in the digital economy. And we see 5 elements that an organization need to have, which is one is about the agility, is basically a rapid decision makings, execution, response to the environmental change. The second one is about the connectivity, is about the consistent collaborations within internal and external stakeholder within the ecosystem itself. The third one is about discipline and focus, which means you need to be clear, you need to have a clear understanding what digital means for your organization, what kind of behaviors that you need your team to perform. The fourth one is about openness and transparency, where it's basically about the transparency of ethics, responsibility, practice, about create an opportunities to showcase a diversity of allowing employees to present their leaders to few level ups. And the last one is about openness and the last one is organization and alignment, empowerment and alignment, which basically is a definitive mission statement and align workforce who are equipped to make decisions. Review the meeting hygienes, put decisions right at the close in the front line. There's some of the things that you need to do in the empowerment and alignment. But the question is, what kind of leaders that can thrive, with this digital sustainable, with these elements, because this element is only from the organization side. You need a person to drive, to actually make the strategy happen. Here is what we got, from our research, where basically we assess 350 digital leaders, and we see from the norm of 4.5 million data points that we get, we see these traits, competencies, and drivers that basically required in order for leaders to thrive. Some of it, I can read it like cultivate innovations, managing ambiguity. Myself and Shweta just talking, like 2019, I will not be here, in my son's rooms, to talk to you all about digital leadership. I need to go to either Singapore or India. The other thing is about, let's say, engage and inspire. Followers and teams, need to be engaged, because we never know, the limits of them. We need to set the tones and thrive it. But it's not only the competency, the trait itself. You need to have a curiosity. You need to have a risk taking, because the information is very uncertain. We never know what will happen in June 2021. Some of traits, competencies, and drivers. And the key challenges is, based on our research, these competencies are scarce in overall populations. Hope that answers your questions, Ree.
Yes, that's all good, Chandi. I'm just going to make a note. We've got some questions coming in already on that. And Shweta, I just want to come to you. I know we've got some polls integrated in today's session, so we want to kind of keep the audience engaged. But I want to understand how technology can build new leadership, or how technology can be utilized to create new leadership mindsets and engage talent. So I want to hand over to you to focus on that, if that's okay.
Yes, so can you repeat it again? Sorry, Ree?
Yes, sorry, sure. I was just going to come to Shweta.
Okay.
I know that Shweta is going to focus on a poll, and I think that's centered around how can we look at technology and build on new leadership mindsets and using technology to inspire and engage talent. So I wanted to bring Shweta in, if that's okay, and get Shweta to focus on that angle.
Absolutely. I don't know if you can I'm just going to make sure that if you can see just give me a second, Ree.
Yeah, all good. I'm just going to jump to the next slide for you.
Yes, slide 7.
Okay, do you want me to ask the audience a poll question to get them engaged?
I think that would be great to kind of see where they're at.
Sure. So for the audience, we want to kind of understand if you as an organisation have a learning platform for upskilling employees, just throwing it back to say how the importance of technology, utilising technology at the moment and going forward is going to be at the centre probably of investment. So my predictions are that yes, there's definitely an investment there. So vote now and let's have a look at that.
It's a very interesting question.
So
wow, that's way more than, that's outstanding actually. 66 points.
I was actually going to say I would have expected that. I would love to have thought that companies and organisations are looking at upskilling employees and investing. So I'm really happy to see that figure, if I'm honest, Shweta. And I just want to come back to you about that question in utilising technology to change that mindset and engage talent. And I wonder if you could focus on that a little bit for me.
Sure. So when we, before we talk about really, learning and how can technology be used to really change mindsets, I think it's important for us to get aligned on what is learning. What is it? Is it about learning a course? Is it about looking at some content, attending a session? Is it about memory? Is it about remembering things? Is it about knowing access to a lot of information or concepts? It's the way we think about learning is actually a process by which you have changes in your brain which allow to behave and respond in particular ways. And that for us is at the core of learning, whether it is changing a mindset. The only way a mindset will change is if you have a change in your neural pathway. And as you know, our work is actually rooted in the science of cognitive neuroscience. So that's how we look at sort of learning. Now, if you look at what Chandi said, and building on from what Chandi talked about, I think why do leaders need to lead the way for digital learning? I think that part, Chandi made so clear. One is there are new things to be done differently, right? So you have no choice if you're a leader to go digital. You have to take on digital transformation is the only way to go forward, because the technology is disrupting how the consumer is seeing the product or service and then using it, and how is the organizing feedback about it. So digital is really disrupting all of that. So the leaders have to do things to make the organization digital, very global, and hence by choice more inclusive, right? You can't be digital, you can't be global and non-inclusive. So leaders have to do things in a different way, but they also have to be in a different way. So like exactly to the example that we heard from Chandi, you cannot lead the organization if you are not personally agile, right? Humble, collaborative, have basically the gumption to say, I don't know. Chandi talked about the fact June 2021, we don't know what's going to happen. That's the fact. And that requires a lot of humility. If you have leaders that are getting insecure and anxious and stressed about this, it's going to leak into the entire organization. So that's certainly one reason for leaders to learn and do this, using technology. The second is, today there's not a single organization that can afford to say, I'm not going to, it's okay for not learning, right? And the reason why I was a little surprised by the survey result, is there's a very high need for learning, but we do still see organizations who are still kind of saying, I don't actually have a learning platform. But, that's rapidly changing, and organizations have realized that I do need to upskill my employees very, very regularly. You can't have that happening unless the leaders themselves invest in learning, because leaders are role modeling. What the leaders do, like they say, what you do will be repeated, and what you say will be repeated, and what you do will be imitated. So certainly this is the reason why leaders need to learn. And now really coming to your question on how can technology ensure, what are the advantages, or how can technology do this? Fortunately, technology actually has the cues and the capacity to create the right neural pathways that can create new mindsets. So I'll give you some example. And I'm going to use some terms, so if anybody in the audience wants to know more about it, feel free to reach out. There is a neurotransmitter which is dopamine. Now, dopamine is the neurotransmitter that gets activated when we are curious, which is why, by the way, quiz shows are so addictive. And by the way, that's also the word where we say doping, but dopamine gets released when you ask questions. And questions are such a powerful tool for directing attention. They increase your self-reference. They help you to recall information much faster. They will create that optimum eustress, which is the optimum stress. Like, I need to know the answer. Beyond just this, if you think about how are we dealing with technology? If you think about the way we work with our banking, my phone, I do my entire banking through my phone today. I watch stories on phone. I record my children's moments on phone. Evoking emotions, creating links between the different things that we've learned, anchoring learning in personal experience, creating a lot of repetition and meaning, doing new things and then creating the meaning, organizing the large picture into smaller chunks. All of this can be done phenomenally through technology. And as a cognitive neuroscience student and a follower in that, I can tell you this is what really transforms learning. And so if you really have to think about why self-paced learning wins, we hear a lot of this, right? Self-paced is the way to go, etc., etc. Why is it winning? Think about it that when you're watching Netflix or you're watching any Amazon Prime, first of all, multiple intelligence is getting used in self-paced, right? Your imagination. You're first of all in control of what you're seeing, how long you're seeing, how much you're learning, how engaged you are. If you didn't follow, you stop, you go back. You like something, you stop, you go back. If you don't like something, you say, no, this part I don't like. Your engagement as a learner is just at a very different level with self-paced. We also found that we keep reviews very quick and snappy because that really helps to fire up the neuronal pathways. And mostly because, like I said, the learner is in the driver's seat. And to all of us out there, we know like how learning was happening a few years back, right? Even up to 2 to 3 years back, I would be sitting or I would be doing this in a hotel room. If I was teaching a workshop, I would actually be facilitating a workshop. I'd be doing it in a classroom mode. And it's very easy to get disengaged in that mode. It's a lot of information you get in 2 days, but you're not really engaging with that learning, wrestling with that concept. And digital really, really helps there. And I think in today's world where learners are, leaders are looking at leadership mindsets, we're looking at, look at all the words that, we use, right? Humble, collaborative, resilient, agile. Digital can help really hyper-personalizing this learning for the leader, right? So making it very predictable, using AI to kind of know, okay, this is the leader, this is where he or she is at, and give them just the right learning. Create knowledge producers. This is something that is, I don't know how many of people in the audience leverage this, but we found the best way to teach somebody is to get them to teach. And we used what we call as digital teach backs. And you really end up creating knowledge producers in the organization. And as somebody who I have been working both in leadership development in a non-digital format, there's two ways to notice that if interactive trumps passive learning any day. Participant control is far more engaging than tutor-controlled learning. A social setting, right, where I may be sitting in a virtual mode, but I'm working in virtual groups, I'm chatting with smaller groups, that trumps solitary learning. Recall, being able to recall something again and again is very, very powerful. And finally, exploring and guessing on your own, invoking your curiosity, your dopamine, your eustress. I think those things really, really make for great, great learning. Tech-enabled, mindset-changing, shifting learning experience for the leaders. I hope that answered your question, Ree.
That was fantastic, Shweta. Really, really good overview. So, Chandi, before I want to come back to you, I just want to pose another question, if that's okay, to the audience. And that's just understanding the importance of the role of technology and that part it plays in building the learning culture in an organization, and whether the audience feel it's very important or not so important. What are your thoughts on what the audience may come back with on this, Shweta?
Well, I'm hoping they'll say very important, certainly very important.
And there you go. That totally 100% hits the nail on the head there. Chandi, I just want to welcome you back in to the conversation, and I want to ask you about how an organisation develops a digitally sustainable leader that can thrive and enable a positive organisational change. Massive question there, and any examples you've got to kind of add some colour and content to that would be fantastic, Chandi.
Thank you, Ree. I think, these days, the leadership, like what Shweta said, the self-paced, the leaders have, in the driver's seat is very important. So I took this ABC model. ABC model is a model that quote by Lombardo and Etchinger. He was in the Lominger Consulting and acquired by Korn Ferry on 2009, 2006. You can see the books in what they call the leadership machines. So what they say, there is an ABC model. ABC model, it stands for 3A, aware, accept, act. 2B, build and plan. And the last one, C, is the consequences. So as a leader, for a to become a digital sustainable, they need to understand first, where are their strength points, where are their developments area, because without understanding those awareness, you cannot go to anywhere. And the second thing, the most important thing as well, is about accepting that, yes, this is my lack, this is my development area, this is my strength, and how can I, use the good sides and the development sides, in order to thrive, to achieve organization's objective. Yet we need to go, accepting and understand it won't go anywhere. You need to take an act. Through the act is, you basically preparing your individual development plans, or the organization set up, a leadership journey that basically comprise of understanding the 80-20 perspective of what are the most gaps for those cohorts. And now I will talk later on in how is the self-paced learning will help the reinforcement to build the habit itself. So Lominger and Lombardo and Etchinger is also the one who quoted the 70-20-10 principles. The 70 is basically on-the-job trainings, 20 based on learning from other, observing from coaching, doing mentorings, and the 10 is basically the course itself. Then after that, after you know that you want to development plans, you need to build it. So where I need to find, this course, through the web crawling that I think Shweta can share more on that, and from other courses or from the company that provided. From the 10 and the 20 basically comes the 70, which is the blend. Implement to your works. Here's again, I'll share how the self-paced would actually help and support to build the habit itself. Then the last things, I think one of the most important things is about celebrate with them, about the changes that happen to them, even if it's small, and it doesn't have to be a monetary. It could be as simple as acknowledging them, in front of the team. Put it a big announcement throughout the organization. It needs to have a systems on celebrating, because people will repeat that habit if they gain something from it. So this how this ABC model basically apply to organizations. So usually in Korn Ferry, what we do is the change behavior programs goes to a journey. So it's not one time off, it's like over 6 months, over 9 months, or over a year. we define the desired behaviors, which is the success profile that I shared to you in the beginnings. Then we assess, to get the awareness and the acceptance, where they are and how far they are with the desired behaviors. Then after that, we provide the development programs, the 70, the 2010s, where about the 70, the 2010s, one of the program that currently most of companies that we work with is doing the immersions and apprenticeships. Immersion and apprenticeship is basically, for immersions, is basically like a benchmarking where you talk with other industrial practice and gain a perspective and understanding from other point of view. That's scope the 20%. And the apprenticeship is basically, we provide, someone become an apprentice in other companies, for certain projects where they will immerse the culture, where they will immerse with the new way of workings, the on-the-job learnings, basically in the safe environments, is provided during that apprenticeships. And we heard so many feedbacks, like one of our clients who went to South America to the small startup companies, so he get engaged with the directors there, and after that when he went back, he connect between this company with his company, and after that it was life changes of him, of how seeing things. That's why the very important of the 70 parts. The last one is basically provide a coaching and reinforcement. I will highlight more on the reinforcement part, because like what Shweta said, the neurons is basically built based on the habits. The more you do it, the stronger the myelin, which is the above of the neurons itself. So the connections between one neuron to other neuron, it will be getting stronger when you reinforce. And the reinforcement, the best way is through self-paced, because you have the control. You can rewind back, you can see back, you can check, then apply it to your programs, to your organizations, to your strategy. Let's say you're going to have one meeting and I forgot how to influence people. What are the 3 steps? Then I can check to my handphones or laptops or iPads, to see and to check. Either is a video, it is an article. Then apply it directly during the meeting. Hope it's answered your question, Sri.
Sorry, I'm here. I'm just coming off mute. I'm appreciating that there is some feedback, so I've just muted myself until we've got that rectified. Fantastic answers, Chandi, and fully in depth as well. So I just want to check, is it worth bringing Shweta in now just to touch on this a little bit more before we look at going to the audience again for a poll, where Shweta, I'm hoping you can give us some success stories where your platform was able to create a large scale impact in an organization's learning culture, and potentially look at some examples there. I'm just checking I've taken you off mute as well, Shweta, now.
Yes. Thank you so much, Ree. Absolutely. I think, one example where we've done this on a very large scale and we're working very closely is Petronas. Most of you know this company. It's a very, very large, conglomerate. Now, it's very interesting how they're using our platform, because it's not just for learning functional skills and leadership skills, because those are important. They're actually using the platform to learn on the values and the behaviors. And it's just beautiful how the team has visualized what are all the different things that are needed to really make a value reside not on the slide or as a poster, but in the hearts of the people. So I'll give you some examples where, we use leadership videos, we've done virtual fireside chats, we've done digital, experiential, immersive experiences, we've used reflection journals, we call it small actions that they do to do 1 degree of shift. So the entire role that digital has actually played is provided, it's exactly like this phone, right? My phone gives me an app notification that I'm supposed to do this now. I'm supposed to take a little walk. I'm supposed to eat healthy. I'm supposed to do my meditation. And that's exactly how the Petronas leaders have learned their values. Like, here's a little cue for you to watch this video. Here's a little cue for you to actually do this reflection exercise on why do you think this value is important? And it's a very small, insidious, small little things that, the leaders have to do, not very time consuming, not at all heavy. And yet when you see the results, if you look at the before and after, the kind of feedback from the ecosystem, we do, and it was so powerful. And really for me, it was very moving to see that at that level, at a values level, at a cultural beliefs level, we're able to make a shift. And then, the example I think that will resonate from our personal lives with all the listeners is this, right? Look at the way we do our banking today. 5 years back, if you asked me that, you have to give money, or 5 or 10 years back, I would not dream of doing it by pushing a button. I'd be worried. But there is so much of behavior change that has come in because of technology. And why not leverage this, when it comes to learning? And we found it to be very, very successful. I mean, we have a lot of examples, Ria. I could also give you the example of Disprz, which is where I came from, which is now Process. It's a tech investment company. And if you look at those examples, what we really find is if we want to make digital learning institutionalized in the organization, then some tips we have, some ways of thinking of it is: one, don't do for the learner what they can do themselves. Don't choose for them what to learn, how much to learn in a day. Choose for them the skills, choose for them the proficiency gaps, choose for them maybe the content strategy, but don't choose more than that. The more engaged they are in making choices, the more they learn. We believe there's nothing like a boring topic. There is only boring training. You don't have to be a neuroscientist. We've taken this approach, but I work with a lot of our clients to help them design their entire digital learning ecosystem, and you really don't need to do a course to do it. But we just need to understand the learner psychology. Learning isn't all about fun, and I hear a lot of my clients say this: you have to make learning fun, you have to make learning fun, you have to make learning engaging. Movies can be fun, and learning has to be engaging. In fact, optimum stress is good. Think of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? The entire, when it was applied in India, the entire country would be waiting with bated breath for those 45 minutes. It's not really fun. It's actually a little stressful, but it's engaging. So think about engaging and not fun. In fact, I think sometimes we tend to underestimate the learners a little bit. I think they like to be more engaged, stretched, pushed. Always challenge poor practice. I see so many clients who tell me, no, this is already done. We already have this document. We already have this. I think it's important to challenge that because technology can make it so much more faster and better. And really, if I had to talk about one thing that we've learned from our experience, I'd say think of creating a learning ecosystem. A platform is a very important part of an ecosystem. But think of an entire environment. What happens when the person goes away from the platform? How are we reinforcing this learning? How are we bringing in performance management? So think of the whole environment rather than just thinking courses and content. Because trust me, we have 1 million users on our platform, and we have customers from more than 22 countries. Learners know if they want content, they will go and get it. Today with the MOOCs, etc., you don't need to spoon feed the learners, so to speak. But creating these learning environments, and like I told you in Petronas, I think that was a winner. What happens on the platform and what happens when you're away from the platform, it's just one beautiful, I would say it was a very technology-driven, humane, engaging experience. And that's just one example. I'm very happy to share more, but I hope that answered your question.
Fantastic, Shweta. And I think just bringing in that humane element you've mentioned is also still really crucial. And I don't want us to forget the importance of those human touch points. I just want to throw it to the audience now, just for another poll to see if they're looking at investing when it comes to, say, learning platforms in the next 3 months, 6 months, or the next year. So just be interested to see the responses on that before I hand back over to you. I'd like to think that majority are looking to invest in the next 12 months for sure. Let's have a look. Just give you a couple more seconds to vote.
Many of them are actually putting that in the next 3 to 6 months. It's interesting. So there's quite a sense of urgency there.
Okay, cool. And I'll pass back over to you, Shweta, just to follow up on that journey design.
Certainly. Thank you so much, Ree. So the way we look at behavior change, and I remember I started this entire conversation with, for us, it's about learning is a new way to do something. And here are really 4, if I could say, cognitive pillars on which the learning experience stands. One is we start by celebrating the learner. We cannot learn when we are in a stressed out or in a shamed manner. That doesn't work. We have to celebrate the learner. For us, the learner is at the center of our universe. The second is, this is a very important study that was done by Ebbinghaus, that the more you space out information sharing, the longer you share it for, the longer it stays. If you share information on a course of 2 days, the chances of the forgetting curve is much faster. Whereas if you keep it for 6 months, then the chances of retention of this for a much longer time is extremely high. And so we use this principle very strongly when we do our learning journeys. Change does trigger fear, because, basically if our brain is not able to create an imagined image, then fear is triggered. It is not something that people are by nature fearful. It's just so much of an involuntary process. So we create something called as habituation. And habituation essentially is, like I explained in the Petronas example, if you do small reflection, small play, almost role plays, where you're trying out a skill or you're trying out being something or doing something in a safe space, in a digital space, then that habituation actually overcomes the fear of change. So I'll give you one example of what I mean. I want somebody to become very confident about speaking, right? So impactful communication becomes very, very important. That's a skill. So of course we will show videos and so on and so forth, but we will keep giving small exercises to the learner through social learning, etc., where they're actually doing very small pieces and nuggets of this, so that by the time the journey is over, they actually find themselves saying, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. They're actually ready to now apply those skills. And finally, reflection for myelination. And what is myelination? I'm sorry for using a very technical term here, but myelination is really where the white matter in the brain ties together the gray matter. And that can happen essentially. So the best way for me to explain myelination is something like that. When we wake up now in the morning, nobody has to tell us. We go straight to the washroom to wash our face, brush our teeth. It's a habit. It's actually these two neuronal pathways go together. I'm waking up, and now I need to, perform certain rituals. And that happens almost together. And it's been found even with people with extensive brain damage, where neuronal pathways are myelinated, there is incredible amount of, predictable behavior. And we find the best way to do is by using reflection. So if you essentially, let me bring it back to our leaders. We talk about a leader who's agile, who's humble. All leaders are humble till, they are challenged, right? How can we ensure that it happens even in times of crisis? By building it up, by making humility into small practice things that they do over a period of time, so that 2 years, 3 years down the line, humility becomes just such a natural way of being. So using the principles of cognitive neuroscience, using technology, and keeping the learner at the center of our world, I think that is really how, we like to change, leadership mindset. And I like to say one click at a time. I hope that answered your question, Ree.
That's fantastic, especially bringing in the neuroscience element as well. I want to move on to focus on some questions specifically from the audience to both Chandi and yourself, Shweta, before we wrap up today. And just talking about building that awareness practically. You mentioned humility, but actually, if a leader currently doesn't see the need to change, for instance, can you give an example of how awareness could be practically implemented?
Certainly, Ria, I can give you examples. Not accepting that there is a need to change is a very human bias. So we all believe we are already perfect. And so we use a couple of things. We do use tools like 360s. We use like very, very safe 360 to give feedback. But we also show, we break down, for example, a desired mindset into behaviors. What would it look like to be humble? And then instead of, so there's also feedback for me. For example, if I'm that leader coming from the ecosystem saying, we don't perceive Shweta as being very humble, for example. Now, that may be something I will reject. But we say, okay, if humility looks like this in this situation, and then over a period of time, Shweta is constantly being nudged to calibrate herself against this behavior. And then, through in a very safe, in a very subtle manner, I start realizing that there are some clear dissonances between what it looks like and what I believe. And because it's happening, this realization in that sense is happening to me alone. It's happening in a very safe way. I'm not feeling defensive. I'm not feeling scared of accepting I need to change. So that's how, digital helps tremendously. It's exactly how what's happening in schools today, right? You can learn math at your pace. And it's so much more safer. So that's how we overcome this resistance to change.
Fantastic. Thank you for that answer, Shweta. So before we close today's session, Chandi, I'd like to come back to you first with a key closing remark or takeaway from today's session, just focusing on that key message that you want the audience to go away with.
I think, the key things that we all need to aware is that the world is changing, then we need a different kind of leaders to adapt, to agile, and to thrive, within this hyper change world. I think that's the most important things. And aware, accept, and act. I think those 3A, the first 3A is really means a lot. How to basically bring someone's strength to change and move to, pro or start changing themselves. There is many ways, like what Shweta says, on the bringing the awareness, but as well as accepting is one of the key things. Without accepting, you will not go anywhere. Thank you.
Fantastic, Chandi. That's a great point. And Shweta, I just want to bring you back in for a final closing remark based on what Chandi just mentioned there.
I think we have infinite potential for learning. And use technology in the right way, organizations can truly achieve their potential for capability. Today, it's you can't not do it. So assume infinite learning potential in the organization. Start with that assumption. Don't start with a limited assumption. And then see the beauty of what technology can do for you.
In terms, sorry, Shweta, just want to come back to you, playing devil's advocate. In terms of, say, maybe a smaller company that's attending today, that isn't a corporate company, and even a corporate company that is, if they're starting to look at that internal buy-in okay, say from CEO, and then looking at their strategy, what would you advise as that kind of next step or that pathway or that journey to kind of get the ball rolling?
Thank you, Lee. I think that's a great way to think about it. One of the ways we have seen it becomes very successful is by doing a little pilot. If the CEO is not convinced, and he or she has every right to kind of say that, look, I need to know, will I get ROI on this investment? Start with a smaller group. Look at a smaller set of people, smaller set of skills, take them through a little journey, see the data at the end of it. And in fact, I can say this, all CEOs will look at the data and say, okay, I can see the difference in productivity. I can see the difference in before-after behavior. And that nothing succeeds like success. So when we show success in a small group, we find that, so for those small companies who don't really have this big agenda and the CEO is not convinced, I would say pick up a small team, reach out to us or whoever you would like to start off with, and then see what technology can do, and then use that to convince the CXO.
Yeah, excellent advice there. Excellent advice. Okay, well, before we move on to our next session, I want to thank Shweta and Chandi for joining me today for a very engaging session. Their session is going to be available on demand afterwards as well for up to a month. And I did mention there is the resource centre there on your screen, so feel free to download those materials for future use. Thank you to Disprz for sponsoring our event, and thank you Chandi and Shweta for joining me today. For everybody in the audience, we're going to move on to a joint session next. So join me in roughly 13 minutes time. We'll be looking at how to put the employees at the centre of the organisation. I'm going to be joined by ABN AMRO and IBM. So for now, Shweta and Chandi, thank you very much for joining me. And to the audience, I will see you in the next session soon.
Pleasure
being here.
Thank you so
much.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.